Layout includes help reduce code duplication quite a bit, but for more targeted layout adaptations, we can get even more fine-grained. Using all those resource qualifiers we learned about, we can vary everything from number of columns to heights and widths to margins and spacing and beyond. Let's take a look. You could use the W600dp qualifier to vary an integer resource, changing the number of columns in a grid of items. An integer resource is basically a number with no units like pixels or dp or anything like that. On a phone, you could have one column, which is basically the same as a vertical list. And on a tablet, or with the W600dp qualifier, we could bump it up to 3 columns. This approach works for both grid view and the grid-based layout managers bundled with recycler view. When switching from a list type presentation to a grid, you'll likely want to use a different layout for each item. To do this, you can access your column count integer resource from code in your adapter and use that to decide which layout to inflate. It's worth noting that in addition to integer resources, there are also Boolean resources. So you could have a Boolean like multi-column, which defaults to false, but in W600dp gets set to true. And then you could decide to use a tile versus a card type list presentation. Another super powerful technique is to just vary specific metrics like paddings, margins, or even button widths and heights. Here's our same UI, but this time we're defining the toolbar and content view once, and specifying heights and margins that change on a 600dp wide screen. This technique is really powerful and lets you minimize code duplication quite a bit. Here's another example. A full width button on a phone might get too wide past 400dp. So you can create a dimension resource called button width that's match parent on a phone and exactly 400dp once the screen width is larger, using the W400dp qualifier. Note that simply typing match parent won't work in dimension resources because it's a special value, -1, that doesn't have any units. Here's a quick trick that works around that limitation. Just put this item tag in your dimensions file that's equivalent to the integer value -1. Then you can reference it in other dimension values like so, using @dimen match parent. And hey, remember keylines from lesson 3? On smaller devices, the standard keylines are 16-dip and 72-dip. But once you get to larger sizes, you can start using the standard tablet keylines of 24-dip and 80-dip. This too can be done with varying dimension resources. In this example, we're telling the toolbar to inset the title from the left edge of the screen to the second keyline. So we're going to inset it by 72 or 80 dip, depending on which device we're running on.